A new Aromage Synchron card has just been added to the game, and with that, Aromages have gotten a nice little buff. In regards to how Aromages currently do in the meta, when I was playing this deck on stream yesterday, I was actually really surprised on how good the deck is. I thought the deck would be completely trash, but it seems to just have a really nice win rate against most decks. I think this is mostly because most decks have moved away from the kind of combat trick style backline of things like wall disruption, mirror walls, widespread ruins, in favour of more stally delay kind of stuff like Paleozoic Canadias and Floodgates, which aren't particularly useful versus this deck. Alright, so this deck has 4 Synchro monsters you can go into. Rosemary is the new primary Synchro card you can get for Aromages. It's a level 5 monster that requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. While your life points are higher than your opponent's, all plant type monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one face-up card your opponent controls. That face-up card has its effects negated until the end of the turn. So don't be fooled by this card's 2000 attack, because generally when you get this card out on the board, you'll have the field spell out and this card, and you'll have more life points than your opponent, so this card's attack is normally 3000. Plus, on top of that, every monster that comes with it will also have a 500 attack buff, since nearly every card in the deck is a plant type monster. Its secondary effect of targeting one card and negating its effect is generally pretty useful against things like DD assailants that try to banish your cards, but it can also be used against things like field spells that give a buff to your opponent's monsters, since you can negate them and make your opponents just weaker. The next Synchron card is Ancient Fairy Dragon. This is a level 7 monster that requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your hand. You cannot conduct the battle phase every time you activate this effect. Once per turn, you can destroy as many field spell cards on the field as possible, and if you do, gain 1000 life points. Then you can add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. So generally the first effect of this isn't all that useful, but obviously it can be used with this deck. But the secondary effect of being able to destroy your field spell, gain 1000 life points, and then search for another one can actually be really relevant. So this card's effects can be used on things like vampires to destroy their field spell so you can search for your field spell. But generally when you're using this card, what you're going to be using it for is, you're going to play your field spell, activate your field spell's effect, then use this card, destroy your own field spell, gain 1000 life points, search for another field spell, and you can use its effect again. The fact this card gives 1000 plus life points as well can be pretty useful for the deck, considering all your Aromage cards generally need your life points to be higher than your opponent's for their effects to activate. This deck can also go into Armades. I don't really think I need to go through Armades as it's in a lot of decks now and most people know what it does. And the final Synchro monster in the deck is Junk Berserker. What this card does is you can banish 1 junk monster from your graveyard, then target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. That target loses attack equal to the banished monster's attack. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, destroy that monster. So generally you're not really going to be going into this card very often. It's probably the least used card in the deck. It does have a pretty high base stat, which can be kind of useful, of 2700 attack. Basically, the only real use for this is if you're versing some kind of stall deck that's running a lot of man-eater bugs or something, because you can just swing this card into their defense position monster, destroy it before it can flip and activate its effect. Alright, so the general combo of this deck and the way you're going to be synchron summoning most of the time is with a simple junk synchron what grows in the graveyard combo. Most of you have probably seen this before as it's been used for most of the Armades decks, but generally all it does is you summon your junk synchron when you've got the skill what grows in the graveyard. Because what grows in the graveyard does is it leaves 1 Dark Verger in your graveyard at the start of the duel, which is a level 2 monster. And what Junk Synchron does is when this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 level 2 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon that target in defense position, but its effects are negated. So summoning this card to special summon out your Verger will simply give you a level 3 and a level 2 with a tuner monster that can help you synchron summon your Rosemary. Keep in mind for later on in the duel, the Junk Synchron can also be used to target Aromage Jasmine, since that card is also level 2. Now I'll go through the Aromage part of the deck. So the Aromage part of the deck contains 3 monsters and 1 field spell. Aromage Jasmine is a level 2 monster with the effect, during your main phase while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can normal summon 1 plant type monster in addition to your normal summon or set, except Aromage Jasmine. Once per turn, if you gain life points, draw a card. You can only use this effect once per turn. So there's only a couple of things to worry about with this card. First of all, it has a pretty low attack stat, so if you are summoning this in attack position, you may need a couple of things to keep it alive to defend it. Otherwise, most of the time you just want to summon it in defense. Unless of course you just want to draw a card. The other thing to worry about with this card is it has a pretty good combo with Bergamot. Since it allows you to summon another monster in addition to itself, it means you can use this card as a tribute for Bergamot, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Rosemary, not to be confused with a bigger Rosemary, has the effect, while your life point is higher than your opponent's, if a plant type monster you control attacks, your opponent cannot activate monster effects until the end of the damage step. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one face-up monster on the field, change its battle position. So obviously this can be super useful into things like man-eater bugs or DD assailants, as you can just swing into them, their effects can't be activated, and every one of your plant type monsters can do so. It also can be pretty useful into monsters that have pretty high attack, since you can just gain life points, activate its effect, make your opponent change that monster into defense position, and then you can safely swing at it. One thing to worry about with this card is, if it is the only monster on the board and you have your field spell out, it will have to change a monster to defense position when you gain life points. So do make sure you don't summon this card, activate your field spell when there's nothing else on the board, otherwise you're going to be putting your own monster into defense position where it only has 700 defense. Bergamot is a level 6 monster with the effect, while your life point is higher than your opponent, if a plant type monster you control attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. Once per turn, if you gain life points, this card gains 1000 attack and defense until the end of the turn. Like I said earlier, this card has a pretty good combo with Jasmine, in that Jasmine allows you to normal summon another monster on top of itself, so when you summon Jasmine, you can just summon this card on top. Just like Rosemary, this card, don't be fooled by its attack stat being only 2400. If you have Rosemary out on the board and the field spell, this card can gain up to 1000 attack, then another 1000 attack on top, so generally this card will have upwards of 4000 attack. And the final Aroma card is Aroma Garden, the field spell. Once per turn, if you control an Aroma monster, you can gain 500 life points. Also, all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense until the end of the turn. If a face-up Aroma monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, gain 1000 life points. So generally this is your main activator to make sure your life points stay above your opponents, so you can activate all your Aromage effects. Since as soon as you play this, you can gain an extra 500 life points, and you're already going to have more than your opponent. Keep in mind that the attack buff is used at all times throughout the turn, so if you activate this card's effect at the start of your turn, then summon an Aromage monster later on, that monster will still have the 500 attack and defense buff. Generally you don't want to do that though, as most of your Aromage monsters have effects that are used when you gain life points, so you want to play your Aromage monsters then use this card to gain life points. Alright, so the rest of the deck is basically just all your trap cards and backline, and it's all preference depending on what you're playing against, or what the current meta is, or what you just want to play. I do highly recommend though running at least a couple of mirror walls, simply because this deck can gain so many life points so quickly that you can just keep mirror walls out for basically forever. Alright guys, that's basically it for the talking part of this video. The rest of this video will just be 5 gameplays showing this deck in action. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback or questions, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Also join my Discord.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.